My girlfriend called me her princess. I'm 6 marca, 240 pounds. Covered in tattoos from my Marine Corps days. Everyone assumes I'm this tough guy who doesn't do feelings. My girlfriend Victoria started calling me her princess 3 months ago as a joke. After I got emotional during the opening scene of Up, I pretended to hate it around our friends, rolling my eyes and telling her to knock it off. But secretly I loved it. Every time she said it when we were alone, something in my chest would loosen, like I could finally breathe. I'd never told anyone this, but after 2 deployments, and watching 3 of my buddies come home in boxes, I spent the last 4 years convinced that being vulnerable made you weak, that caring about anything too much was dangerous. Victoria never pushed. She'd just call me her princess while we watched TV, or whisper it when she thought I was asleep. Those 2 words made me feel more seen than any therapy session the VA ever offered. Last Tuesday, I came home early from my construction job. My boss sent everyone home at 2 p.m. because a cement delivery got delayed. I was actually excited because Victoria worked from home on Tuesdays, and I thought I'd surprise her with takeout from that Thai place she loves. I walked in quietly, planning to scare her as a joke. That's when I heard her voice coming from our bedroom. Of course I call him that, he eats it up. My hand froze on the doorknob. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. He acts all tough, but the second I call him princess, his whole face lights up. She continued laughing. It's honestly kind of pathetic how desperate he is for A. I stood in that hallway for what felt like an hour, but was probably 30 seconds. Every muscle in my body locked up, the same way they did during my first firefight in Kandahar. Flight or fight? Response. Except this time, I couldn't do either. She kept talking. I love him, but sometimes I wonder if he'll ever actually deal with his issues, instead of just waiting for me to fix him with pet names. Grabbed my keys off the counter and left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a sound. I just walked out like a ghost. My phone started blowing up within 10 minutes. 12 missed calls, 23 texts. I turned it off and drove to my buddy Josh's place. He's the only guy from my unit who made it back relatively okay. I told him everything. He listened, handed me a beer, and said, "Man, that's rough, but are you sure that's what she meant?" I spent that night on his couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment Victoria had called me princess, trying to figure out which ones were real and which ones were her, laughing at me behind my back. For 2 days, I ignored her completely. She showed up at Josh's place on Wednesday evening. He opened the door, took one look at her crying, and said he's in the garage before disappearing back inside. Victoria found me working on my truck, which is what I do when I can't deal with my feelings. She looked terrible. Red eyes. No makeup, wearing my old Marine's hoodie. "Please tell me what I did wrong," she said, her voice cracking. "Please. I can't fix it if you won't talk to me." I didn't look up from the engine. I came home early on Tuesday. She went completely still. "What?" "I heard you on the phone talking about how pathetic I am." My hands were shaking, so I gripped the wrench harder. "About how desperate I am for affection. About how I'm too broken to fix myself." "Oh my God." Her voice sounded strange. Not defensive. Horrified. "Oh my God. You only heard part of it." She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and opened her call history. "I was talking to my sister," Victoria said, her voice trembling. She held the phone out like it was a weapon she didn't want to use. "To Sarah. You know how she is. You know how she talks about men." I wiped my grease-stained hands on a rag, not looking at the screen. "I don't care who you were talking to, Vic. I heard what you said. Pathetic. Desperate." "No," she stepped closer, invading the sanctuary of the garage. "You heard the words, but you didn't hear the punctuation. You didn't hear the rest of the sentence." She tapped the screen. It was a voice note chain. She hit play. Sarah's voice, tinny and sharp, filled the garage. "I'm just saying, Vic, be careful. These military guys are ticking time bombs. He's probably just using you for a soft landing. It's weird for a guy that size to want to be coddled. It's pathetic." Then Victoria's voice. The recording I had heard. "Of course I call him that, he eats it up." There was a pause. The pause where I had frozen on the doorknob. "He acts all tough, but the second I call him princess, his whole face lights up. It's honestly kind of pathetic how desperate he is for affection." My stomach clenched. There it was. The insult. But the recording didn't stop. "Because the world has starved him of it for 30 years, Sarah. It's pathetic that our society makes men feel like they have to bleed to earn a hug. He's not broken. He's the most whole person I know, and I'm going to give him that safe space whether you get it or not. So if you're going to call my boyfriend pathetic for having feelings, we're done talking for today." The recording clicked off. The silence in Josh's garage was heavier than the engine block I'd been hoisting. I stood there, the wrench hanging loosely in my hand. The blood rushing in my ears slowed down. I replayed the tape in my head. The tone I had interpreted as mocking laughter. It wasn't laughter. It was incredulity. She wasn't laughing at me. She was laughing at the absurdity of her sister's cruelty. You were defending me? My voice sounded wrecked. Like I'd swallowed gravel. Victoria lowered the phone. Tears were streaming freely down her face now, ruining her shirt. I was fighting for you, Jack. I was fighting for us. And then you just vanished. She took a step forward but stopped, respecting the invisible perimeter I usually kept around myself when I was spiraling. I thought. I started then stopped. I felt a different kind of pathetic now. The kind where you realize your own insecurities just sabotaged the best thing in your life. I walked in right at the pathetic part. My brain it filled in the blanks with the worst case scenario. That's the trauma, Jack, she whispered. That's the thing that tells you everyone is an enemy. But I'm not the enemy. I'm your girl. I dropped the wrench. It clattered loudly on the concrete. I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't disgusted. She wasn't pitying me. She was just hurt, and she was scared she had lost me. I closed the distance in 2 strides and pulled her into me. I buried my face in her neck, breathing in the smell of her shampoo and the stale air of the garage. I held her so tight I was afraid I might break her, but she squeezed back just as hard. I'm sorry. I mumbled into her hair. I'm so sorry. Don't you ever ghost me like that again, she sobbed, hitting my chest weakly with her fist. You scared me to death. I won't, I promised. And I meant it. But knowing the truth and healing the wound are 2 different things. I knew she hadn't betrayed me, but the feeling of being exposed, of being pathetic, even if she didn't mean it that way, lingered. It sat in the back of my mind like shrapnel the surgeons couldn't dig out. Chapter 2, The Aftershocks. We went home that night. Josh gave me a nod as we left, the kind that said don't screw this up, and closed the door. The drive back was quiet. Not the angry quiet of before, but a fragile one. We ordered the Thai food I had meant to get on Tuesday. We ate on the couch. Do you want to watch a movie? She asked. Sure. She put on a comedy. I stared at the screen, but I wasn't seeing it. I was seeing the look on my face in the mirror at Josh's place. The scared eyes of a little boy trapped in a giant's body. Halfway through the movie, she shifted closer. She rested her head on my shoulder. I stiffened instinctively, then forced my muscles to relax. I love you, princess, she whispered. I flinched. She pulled back immediately. I'm sorry. Too soon. I looked at her. The words, which used to feel like a warm blanket, now felt sharp. Like a joke I wasn't in on, even though I knew the context. Yeah. I said, my voice low. Maybe let's retire that one for a bit. She looked crushed, but she nodded. Okay, Jack. Whatever you need. For the next 2 weeks, we walked on eggshells. She stopped using pet names entirely. She stopped touching my hair when I was driving. She treated me like I was made of glass, which was exactly what I hated. I was a Marine. I wasn't supposed to be fragile, but I was. I went to work. I poured concrete. I hauled rebar. I sweated until my muscles screamed, trying to exorcise the feeling of weakness. But at night, the nightmares came back. Not the usual ones about IEDs and ambushes. New ones. In the dream, I was standing in a room full of everyone I knew, my platoon, my boss, my dad. And Victoria was on a stage, reading my diary, reading about how I liked to be held, reading about how I cried during movies. And everyone was laughing. Not mean laughter. Pitying laughter. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, gasping. Victoria would be on her side of the bed, awake, watching me. She wanted to reach out. I could see her hand twitch, but she didn't. Because I had built the wall back up. Chapter 3, The Breaking Point. It came to a head on the 4th of July. I usually handle the 4th okay. I stay indoors, put on noise-canceling headphones, and watch action movies with the volume up. Victoria usually stays with me, making popcorn, ignoring the parties. But this year, her family was hosting a massive barbecue. Sarah, the sister from the phone call, was going to be there. You don't have to go, Victoria said that morning. She was curling her hair in the bathroom. I'm going, I said, lacing up my boots. Jack, you know Sarah is abrasive. And there will be fireworks. I'm not afraid of your sister, Vic. And I'm not letting her think she was right about me being a basket case. That was pride talking. Stupid, stubborn pride. We drove to her parents' house. It was a sprawling place with a pool and too many people. When we walked in, Sarah was in the kitchen mixing margaritas. She stopped when she saw me. She looked me up and down, my size, my tattoos, the scowl I wore like armor. Well, Sarah smirked. The prodigal boyfriend returns. Did you finally finish licking your wounds? Victoria stepped forward, eyes blazing. Sarah, shut up. I'm fine, I grunted, grabbing a beer from the cooler. Nice to see you too, Sarah. I spent the next 3 hours standing by the grill with Victoria's dad, talking about brisket. It was safe there. The heat of the fire felt familiar. But as the sun went down, the atmosphere shifted. The kids started running around with sparklers. The heavy ordnance came out. All right, Sarah's husband yelled, dragging a crate of illegal mortars into the center of the yard. Who's ready to blow some stuff up? My heart rate spiked. Thump thump, thump thump. Jack, Victoria touched my elbow. Let's go inside. Or we can leave. I'm good, I lied. I clenched my beer can until the aluminum crinkled. I've fine. The first mortar went off. Boom! A flash of white light. A concussive wave that rattled the windows. I didn't flinch. I held it together. Boom! Crack crack crack. My breath got shallow. The smell of sulfur drifted across the lawn. It smelled like Kandahar. It smelled like the day Lewis died. Boom! I closed my eyes. Man down. We got a man down. The voice wasn't real. It was in my head. Boom! Someone laughed nearby. A shrill, high-pitched laugh. Suddenly, I wasn't in a backyard in Ohio. I was in a Humvee. The air was full of dust. My hands were sticky with something warm. Jack. I spun around. A figure was approaching me. I didn't see Victoria. I saw a threat. My body reacted before my brain could catch up. I dropped into a defensive stance, grabbing the nearest object, a steak knife from the grill platter. Stay back. I roared. The sound was primal. It silenced the entire party. The fireworks stopped. The music seemed to die. I was standing near the pool, holding a steak knife, hyperventilating. Everyone was staring. Sarah looked terrified. Her kids were crying. Victoria was standing 3 feet away, her hands up, palms open. Jack, she said, her voice steady, piercing the fog of the flashback. It's me. Look at me. It's Victoria. I blinked. The dust cleared. I saw the pool. I saw the tiki torches. I saw the knife in my hand. I dropped it. It clattered on the pavers. I choked. He's crazy, Sarah shrieked, pulling her kids behind her. I told you. He's a psycho. I looked at Victoria. I waited for her to be embarrassed. I waited for her to agree with Sarah. I waited for her to turn away from the broken, pathetic soldier who ruined the party. Victoria didn't look at Sarah. She didn't look at the guests. She walked straight up to me, right through the tension, and grabbed my face in her hands. Eyes on me, she commanded. Her voice was fierce. Right here. You're in Ohio. You're safe. You're with me. She pulled my forehead down to hers. Breathe, my princess, she whispered. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a tease. It was a lifeline. It was her telling me that I was allowed to be soft, allowed to be scared, and she was going to be the shield. Something inside me broke. The dam I had built for 2 weeks, for 4 years, shattered. I collapsed. I fell to my knees right there on the grass, and I wept. Ugly, heaving sobs that shook my massive frame. And she went down with me. She wrapped her arms around my shoulders, shielding me from the stares, from the judgment, from the world. I got you, she kept repeating. I got you. Chapter 4, The Long Road Home. We left 10 minutes later. Victoria drove. I sat in the passenger seat, exhausted, staring out the window. She didn't say anything until we were on the highway. Sarah isn't allowed at our wedding, she said. I looked at her. Wedding. Yeah. Eventually. Unless you plan on going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere, I said hoarsely. But I messed up, Vic. I pulled a knife at a family barbecue. You had a flashback, she said firmly. And Sarah's husband is an idiot for setting off mortars 10 feet from a combat veteran. We're going to deal with it. Ow. Therapy, she said. Real therapy. Not just the VA check-ins where you lie and say you're fine. I found a specialist. He works with special forces guys. He does EMDR. Josh goes to him. Josh called me, she admitted. While you were ignoring me. He told me you needed help, Jack. Real help. He said you were drowning. I looked at my hands. They were steady now. Okay, I said. I'll go. Chapter 5. The Reconstruction. The next year was the hardest work I'd ever done. Harder than boot camp. Harder than pouring concrete in a heat wave. Dr. Aris was a no-nonsense guy who didn't let me get away with the tough guy act. He made me talk about the boxes. He made me talk about the guilt. He made me talk about why being called princess meant so much to me. You spent your whole life being a weapon, Dr. Aris said one session. Weapons don't get to be soft. Being called princess is the antithesis of a weapon. It means you're something precious. Something to be protected. You've never been protected, Jack. I went home that day and cried in the shower for 20 minutes. Victoria sat on the bath mat the whole time, reading a book, just so I knew she was there. Slowly, the walls came down. I started telling Victoria things. The real things. I told her about the day Lewis died. I told her about how heavy the gear felt. I told her about how I was afraid I'd never be a good father because I had too much anger inside. And she listened. She didn't try to fix it. She just held it with me. One Tuesday, about 8 months after the barbecue incident, I came home early again. I walked in. Victoria was on a Zoom call in the living room. I waited in the kitchen listening. No, I can't do the presentation next week, she was saying. My boyfriend and I are taking a trip. We're going hiking. Pause. Yeah, he's great. He's doing really well. She laughed at something the other person said. Yeah, he looks scary, but he's actually a total princess. He requires high thread count sheets and specific snacks. I smiled. I leaned against the fridge and smiled. She wasn't hiding it. She wasn't ashamed of it. She was owning it. She hung up and walked into the kitchen. She jumped when she saw me. Hey, you're early. High thread count sheets? I asked, raising an eyebrow. She grinned, wrapping her arms around my waist. Am I wrong? You literally spent 20 minutes in Bed Bath & Beyond feeling pillowcases last week. I have sensitive skin, I grumbled, but there was no heat in it. Sure you do, princess. I kissed her. I brought Thai food. Chapter 6: The Test. Recovery isn't a straight line. There were bad days. Days where I couldn't get out of bed. Days where the world was too loud. But the real test came 2 years later. We were married by then. Small ceremony. Josh was the best man. Sarah was invited, but only because she had apologized profusely after Victoria went scorched earth on her. We were driving home from a dinner date when it happened. It was raining. A car in the oncoming lane hydroplaned. It spun out, crossed the median, and slammed into the guardrail right in front of us. It flipped. I slammed on the brakes. My truck skidded to a halt inches from the wreckage. Stay here, I told Victoria. Jack, call 911. Stay in the truck. I jumped out. The rain was pouring down. The overturned car was a mess of crumpled steel and steam. I ran to it. My training kicked in. Assess. Tree. Act. There was a woman in the driver's seat. Unconscious. Bleeding from the head. And in the back, a car seat. A baby was screaming. The smell of gasoline hit me. Panic. My chest tightened. The flashback started to creep in. The smell of fuel. The twisted metal. It was just like the Humvee. Run, my brain screamed. It's going to blow. Run. I froze. My hands started to shake. I couldn't breathe. The rain felt like shrapnel. Jack. Victoria was beside me. She shouldn't be here. She should be in the truck. Jack, look at me. I looked at her. Her hair was plastered to her face. Her dress was ruined. The baby, she yelled over the rain. The baby needs you. You are the only one strong enough to get that door open. Do it. She didn't coddle me. She gave me a mission. I can't, I gasped. I can't do it. Yes, you can, she grabbed my arm. Her grip was iron. You are not back there. You are here. You are my hero. Now get that door open, princess. Move. The word cut through the noise. It grounded me. It reminded me that I wasn't just a soldier. I was hers. And she believed I could do it. I roared. I grabbed the jammed door of the back seat. I put my boot against the frame and pulled with everything I had. Every ounce of the 240 pounds of muscle I carried. Metal screeched. The door popped open. I unbuckled the car seat. I pulled the baby out. He was crying, but he was okay. I handed him to Victoria. Take him, I said. Get back. I went for the driver. I cut her seatbelt with the knife I always carried. I dragged her out just as the engine block caught fire. We got them to the side of the road. The ambulance arrived minutes later. I sat on the guardrail, soaked, covered in grease and blood. The adrenaline was crashing. The shakes were setting in. Victoria walked over to me. She had given the baby to the EMTs. She stood between my legs and wrapped her arms around my head, pulling me into her stomach. You did it, she whispered. I almost froze. I said, my teeth chattering. But you didn't. You came back. She kissed the top of my wet head. Let's go home. Epilogue. We have a daughter now. Her name is Maya. She's 3. She's fearless. She climbs everything. I came home from work yesterday. My back was killing me. I'm getting too old for construction, thinking about moving into management. I walked in the door. Maya was in the living room, wearing a plastic tiara and a cape. Daddy, she screamed, tackling my legs. Hey, monster, I grunted, picking her up. Daddy, sit. We having tea? She pointed to the small plastic table set up in the corner. There were tiny cups, a plastic teapot, and a pink feather boa draped over my usual spot, the floor cushion. I sat down. It took a while to get the knees to cooperate. Victoria walked in. She leaned against the doorframe, watching us. Put this on, Maya commanded, handing me the boa. I put it on. And this. She handed me a spare tiara. It was way too small. It perched on my bald head like a ridiculous garnish. You look beautiful, Maya declared. I looked at Victoria. She was smiling. That soft, knowing smile that made my chest loosen. Who's the princess now? She asked. I took a sip from the empty plastic cup, pinky out. We can share the title, I said. Maya poured me more invisible tea. Daddy is the biggest princess. You got that right, kid, I said. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to argue. I was big. I was scarred. I had seen hell and lived to tell about it. But in this house, with these women, I was a princess. And it was the best rank I'd ever held.